Howdy ho, Maplers, and welcome to Demon Slayer, the canonical demon. Demon Slayer is far and away the better of the two demon classes currently. This is probably one of, if not the best solo bossing classes in the game currently. The only thing that would kind of rival it is like Dual Blade in terms of versatility as like safety and damage uptime, but Demon Slayer, unlike Dual Blade, is also quite the mobber. For the gear, it's all the same stuff I use across my 250 mules, just some Meso and Trop gear as my accessories, a pretty darn decent cup, shame it had magic attack, but we'll take it, a fake arcane weapon that we got as a reward for one of the previous events, I believe it was Ho Young, when I got Ho Young to 250, where I got that, and I'm using my strength percent hat. While having a cooldown hat would be nice to get Demon Cry's cooldown down a little bit, Boundless Rage is up enough that you're going to be able to have a 7-second cooldown on Demon Cry more often than not, especially if you have other sources of buff duration for Boundless Rage's uptime. I really didn't feel like it was too necessary, and the extra stat definitely helped because just like my Mercedes, this is another character where I decided to just start and level up a brand new set of symbols while I was leveling the character, because I figured Yeti and Pink Bean World was going to happen while I'm training this character, which means this one's going to take longer than normal, so more days available to me to do dailies, why not level up a new set of symbols? And it worked out pretty well. For the inner ability, you ideally want to have boss damage 20%, and then an ideal second line would be buff duration, because again, Boundless Rage is affected by your buff duration, and having this up as much as possible is super handy, not only for your cooldown cut on Demon Cry for mobbing, which is pretty darn handy, it also removes the Fury cost for all of your skills, so it removes one of your restrictions for bossing. You're more able to just freely deal damage without having to worry about your demon force. And Demon Slayer, much like Mercedes, just gives me zero luck with my inner ability. We were rolling this thing all the way up until 249, where I finally rolled item drop 18% and hardcore settled. I don't know what it is with me and inner abilities to the latter half of these 250s, but I am not getting any luck. And for the V Matrix, as always, it was the same in Demon Avenger. Decently simple, right there in that first slot. It gives you XP, gives you drop rate, really couldn't ask for more. Even if it's level 1, it should be the first thing you slap on your V Matrix. It's super handy. And for the Demon Slayer specific skills, honestly, if you're strong enough to not need boost nodes right out the gates, I would highly recommend putting on your skills first, because they're going to make up a lot of your mobbing. But if you need to do a hybrid of like 1 or 2 skills and then some boost nodes, the order of importance for your Demon Slayer skills is definitely going to be Orthrus, then your Big Sneck, then Demon Awakening for mobbing. So just put these on in order in conjunction with whatever boost nodes you need to be able to mob efficiently, but these things are going to help your mobbing out a lot if you can get to them. Right out the gates, Orthrus, also known as Gary, because there are 2 little demons, Nemiya and Garion. We just short them both to Gary. Gary's gonna carry you quite a bit. The hitbox on these demons is honestly insane. Like, Infernal Concussion has a pretty darn big hitbox to begin with, and these guys go up another head taller than Infernal Concussion's hitbox. It's super good, and they trigger quite often, and they'll attack in both directions to the side of you, farther out horizontally than Infernal Concussion can reach on its own. Fantastic ability. The only downside this has is its uptime isn't the greatest. It's only 40 seconds. Wish it's good, but I wish it was longer. And then Big Sneck, Spirit of Rage. This is kind of like Demon Slayer's loot timer. Its cooldown does go down with levels, so if you max it out, it'll be a lot more convenient, but you don't really need to right out the gates. For bossing, it's just a big burst ability. You drop it down, Sneck slaps about and does big lines of damage, but for mobbing, you pretty much want to put him in the most congested area of the map, and then while the Big Sneck is out doing his thing, you just want to get around the map and loot as quickly as possible. Because this thing is going to be mobbing practically the entire map. It's a very big snack, and he covers big parts of the map. And then your final mobbing tool, one that's really important for certain rotations and almost entirely ignored for others, Demon Awakening. This is the skill that gives you the bigger demon wings and it empowers your demon lash for your bossing form, but it's also pretty darn handy for mobbing. The empowered demon lash is a substantial increase to the hitbox for demon lash, so much so that this skill, where you're going to be using it primarily as a mobbing skill, is going to be triple platting more often than not. The final attack, not the third one because it's 5 swings. The final attack, the big chomp on the Demon Lash, is a ginormous hitbox. And it's going to be triggering a lot because if you have attack speed 0, the whole 5-hit combo is like less than a second to get out, and this is up for 50 seconds, so you can imagine you're going to be chomping all over the map. And it is a fantastic skill, because not only does it give you a better mobbing skill, it also boosts that mobbing skill's damage substantially. You're not going to really have too many issues one-shotting mobs with the empowered Demon Lash while Awakening is up. For rotations where you're not using Demon Lash as the primary mobbing skill, and you're still just flash jumping around using Infernal Concussion, this skill still is helpful to use on cooldown, because it does give you an automatic trigger of Cerberus Chomp every 8 seconds. And it's kind of hit or miss, much like most RNG like trigger attacks in the game. Think back to like Thunderbreakers, Lightning God Spear. You don't have any control where it spawns, but it felt more often than not that Cerberus Chomp would spawn in areas where my Infernal Concussion couldn't necessarily reach, so it was usually better than nothing. But there are definitely times where the Chomp would just go off on one mob or on a mob that I already killed, so it can be pretty hit or miss. For bossing, this is your damage ability. This is where you're going to be putting out dump trucks of damage, because you got that empowered Demon Lash for 50 seconds. You can even stack this up with Orthrus for huge bursts, drop the big snack on top of it. It's great. This skill does oodles and canoodles of damage, and it's only a 2-minute cooldown. It's absolutely incredible. Like, this skill does not miss. Then for the boost nodes for Demon Slayer, you only need 2 trios. Your first trio is pretty much your bossing trio, which is Demon Lash, Demon Impact, and Cerberus Chomp. And then your second trio, your mobbing trio, is Infernal Concussion, Dark Metamorphosis, and Demon Cry. Now, Dark Metamorphosis, while it can mob, there are definitely instances where I would recommend not using Dark Metamorphosis while you're training, especially if you're going to be using a character building one. Now, this more so only applies to people who are quite, overfunded for the areas they're training in. But if your Dark Metamorphosis is killing mobs before they have a chance to attack your character, you're not going to get hit enough times to trigger character building 1 while you're training. So while it is nice to have the Dark Metamorphosis buff active, if you don't need it to kill the mobs with your Infernal Concussion or with your Cerberus Chomp or what have you, I would honestly recommend just not using the buff. For bossing, you just want it on all the time because it's just another source of damage while you're close to mobs or while you're close to the boss. But for mobbing, it can be a little bit detrimental if you are using the specialty node for character building 1, because this relies on your character getting attacked, not you attacking mobs. And if you're killing any mobs near you before they get the chance to even try to attack you, this doesn't trigger too often. And then for the final Demon Slayer skill, pretty much just a bossing skill, it's Demon Bane. This skill is cool, alright? It's a lot of burst damage, and it's an iframe as well, but it is a freakishly long cooldown. Like, it's really good. It is a good ability, but the amount of damage you get out of this does not warrant the ridiculously long cooldown. 4 minutes is a long time, dude. In 4 minutes, you're getting 2 cycles of Demon Awakening, and Demon Awakening is just going to outperform Demon Bane in damage regardless. So I feel like they weighted the cooldown really heavily because they made this skill part iframe, part burst skill, and I kind of think it's a little unnecessary. But as it sits right now, this skill is really nice. You don't really need it while you're training to 250. I threw it on once I got to 240. Once I was moving up into Celis, I needed the extra burst damage to reliably kill elites, especially warrior elites, before they weapon canceled me. So it is handy to have, but for training specifically, the skill can just be left off your board. You don't really need it, especially for early levels like Orthrus, Demon Awakening, and your big Sneck. They can more than nuke an elite. And then, of course, your decent skills, decent combat orders, decent sharp eyes, a little bit of extra stat here and there, some extra damage percent for your 4th job skills, and crit rate, crit damage. Who doesn't want those? For Demon Slayer, you don't necessarily need Rope Lift. I threw it on just to make life a little bit easier. They do have a very strong up jump, but there's this awkward interaction where if you lock Demon Slayer's glide, so that you flash jump when you double tap your jump key instead of glide, you can't up jump and then flash jump. Like, you can up jump and then glide if you have glide unlocked, but you can't do the same if glide is locked. You can't flash jump after. So I used rope lift for situations where I needed to go up vertically and then flash jump horizontally to continue the rotation. It made Spirit Savior a lot easier. And then, of course, character building 1. If you're going to be training for any length of time, I'd highly recommend crafting this. It's just the best EXP node there is, outside of Decent Holy Symbol, of course. It's just super duper handy. Again, if you're using it, Dark Metamorphosis, if it's strong enough to one-shot mobs, I'd recommend just not using it unless you desperately need it for mobbing. And then finally, True Arachnid Reflection. You get it for completing the Will storyline in Esfera. Decent mobbing, decent bossing. Couldn't really ask for more. Demon Slayer is also a warrior class, so having a reliable summon that does actual damage, poor Lucid Soul, it's super handy. Throw it on when you get it, or when you have space for it. It's not going to make or break your mobbing rates, it's just a really convenient thing to have. For the training on Demon Slayer, it starts out really simple, it gets a little more complex. For 200 until 205, you got the Tried and True 2. You've got Below the Cave, you've got Eastern Cave Path 2. They're both fantastic, they both work great with Infernal Concussion's hitbox. For these level ranges, you really don't even need your 5th job skills, so if you just want to slap on your boost nodes first and foremost, you can do that. All you gotta do is flash jump through and use Infernal Concussion at the apex of your jump, so you're guaranteeing that everything in the map is getting hit. It's super, super convenient. Now, Infernal Concussion is a sort of awkward ability. It is a 2-part attack. You have 1 instance of damage when the little orbs go up in the air, and then you have a 2nd instance of damage when they explode. This is a good and a bad thing. For a lot of these early levels where you're going to be strong enough to kill mobs with the first hit of damage, it's great because it's effectively doubling the mob count for Infernal Concussion. But for areas where the height of the platforms you're trying to hit are more intense, it's awkward because if you're training on attack speed 2 like I do, you have to meticulously time your flash jumps and your Infernal Concussions to be able to get that explosion off at the top of your jump. It's super weird to use. I kind of hope in the future they just like buff the base mob count on it and make it a single part attack so it's more user friendly, but as it is right now, it's doable, albeit a little awkward. And for 205 until 215, you've got the Hidden Underground train again. This map is fantastic. From Mercedes into Demon Slayer, it's just a super versatile map. The Hidden Research train does work, however, since you're a warrior class, your soul damage is not very good. So I stuck to just training it out here in the Hidden Underground train because it works better with classes who just want to flash jump and use their main mobbing skill. As always, remember to just use Demon Cry on cooldown. It gives you bonus drop rate from the mobs you kill, which is super handy while you're training. And around this point, you'll probably start cycling in some of your skills, so just whenever it's off cooldown, use Orthrus. The little demon duders will start swinging around and killing mobs. They'll give you extra reach to your mobbing skills, so when Demon Cry or Cerberus Chomp are on cooldown, you don't really have to worry too much. Those very tippity top mobs are going to get cleared by Gary and Namiya. They're fantastic little duders for helping out your mobbing reach vertically. They're actually an amazing skill. And this will carry you on into 215 super duper quick. You can honestly stay here until 220 and you won't see too much of an EXP drop off just by how efficiently you're going to be clearing the map. So if you don't have the damage to transition to Yum Yum Island right away, but you still want to get into Latchland to start working on another symbol, that's a fantastic place to stay. But if you have the damage, or if you just want to change your pace, 215 until 220. It's Hidden Iliad Field, dude. We're finally back. The best map in Yum Yum Island. And it's fantastic for Demon Slayer as well. Primarily because this is one of the first maps where you're going to actually see the benefit from Demon Awakening's mobbing for the empowered Demon Lash. While Demon Awakening is active, your Infernal Lash, especially the Chomp, can triple plat, so your entire combo, these little 5 swings here, is enough to clear the entire middle. So if you have a Lucid Soul, or even if you don't, it doesn't make too much of a difference. If you have a Lucid Soul, just drop her on one of the sides, and then while you have your Demon Awakening up, just stand slightly off-centered towards the side your soul isn't on, and then just attack with your Demon Lash combo left and right. And by golly, it's easy. It's easy and it gets really, really good rates. It also helps that Demon Lash does so much more damage in its Awakening form that you really aren't going to struggle too much for any one part of this combo to kill mobs. The only thing that's probably not going to be one-shotting is the Lucid Soul, which mine still isn't, Sag. And then when it's off, you just flash jump along the bottom with your Infernal Concussion. If you have attack speed 0, it's a bit easier to hit the top, but it's not too bad. You can like meticulously time the flash jump and the attack to consistently hit the top on attack speed 2, but I never really found it was wholly worth it, because as long as you're just cycling between Demon Awakening and Orthrus and then just dropping your Sneck to do loot cycles, you really don't have to worry about hitting the top too much, because while Orthrus is up, they're going to be hitting the top, while Demon Awakening is up, you're going to be clearing the entire map, and then when Big Sneck is up, he's going to be clearing the entire map. So you don't really have to worry too much about making the perfect pixel-perfect flash jump to get Infernal Concussion just the right amount of height to clear the top mobs, because you've got enough like random trigger abilities to catch them. And that'll get you on into Latchland super duper fast. You can honestly stay there until 225 if you want to. The map really doesn't slow down. The EXP difference between Hidden Iliad Field and the Latchland maps is very small. So if you like Hidden Iliad Field and you want to stick it out there, by all means. But for 220 until 230, your other option is Rev 3. This map, just like the Hidden Iliad Field, is pretty simple. Here is where you're not really going to be using the Empowered Demon Lash too much, because you need to be moving through the entire map, and Demon Lash is kind of an awkward ability. It is a 5-part attack, but if you move, change directions, what have you, in between swings, it fully resets the combo. So you're never really going to be able to get that big chomp out of Demon Awakening. So instead, you'll still be using the skill on cooldown, cycling between it and Orthrus, but while it's up, you'll just be using Infernal Concussion, and you'll pretty much be using Demon Awakening specifically for the Cerberus chomp that comes out passively every 8 seconds, because it will tag mobs that you're not quite able to reach, and it'll just help out with your mobbing, because more than likely, unless you're super overfunded, at this point, your Lucid Soul is not going to be helping you out too much. She's pretty much just joining the ranks as a cheerleader to cheer you on through these levels. And you just flash jump left and right, clearing all the mobs you can with Infernal Concussion, letting your trigger abilities, whether it be Orthrus or Cerberus Chomp, Demon Cry, what have you, to clear the mobs that are just out of your reach, and it's a very simple map. You'll get through these levels super, super fast, and you'll get on into Arcana. For 230 until 235, once again, we'll be back in the Earth Spirits. I love every time I can get to this map, because ever since it got buffed, it's just a joy to train in, because it's got such a nice little layout, and all the mobs are nice and compact here in the middle, which means when you're using your Sneck, it's gonna be hitting most of the mobs in the map. It feels really good. But just like Rev 3, you're just going to be flash jumping through the map, ideally staying more so towards the inner section of the map, because there aren't too many mobs on the very outside edges. You can ignore the 1 or 2 that spawn out there, or you can just time one of your abilities, be it Demon Cry or Cerberus Chomp, to clear those, or you'll just happen to hit them with one of your Orthrus demons. They'll get cleared up eventually. You don't have to worry too much about clearing them on cooldown. But this map is fantastic, and you can stay here for quite a while. I'd recommend staying here until about 235, but if you need to, if you don't have the damage for the later areas in Arcana, you can stay here all the way up until 240. These little duders are great. This map is fantastic for Demon Slayer. It is a tad awkward to loot, but it has a perfect layout. Even while your Sneck is up, it's clearing most of the map for you. It's great. But then at 235 until 244, you got two options. One that I'd recommend and the other for your lazy mapler out there. The one I'd recommend is LP1. This map can kind of be awkward if you're training on attack speed too, but the more you do it, you'll get really used to it. You do have a little bit of timing involved in your flash jump so that Infernal Concussion hits the top, because if you flash jump quickly, your Infernal Concussion isn't quite going to reach. What you need to do instead is jump, wait a second, and then flash jump, and then use Infernal Concussion. And you'll more often than not hit the top platform, making this a very consistent map. As long as you're just jumping left and right, 3 jumps either direction, cycling your Demon Awakening for the free Cerberus chomps, using Orthrus on cooldown, and then using your big Sneck whenever you need to loot, this map can push upwards of 30k mob kills an hour. And for a rotation that's literally just jump in each direction 3 times, that's ridiculously good. This map is so insane. I kind of thought coming into this that it would be a lot trickier than it actually ended up being, because most of the Demon Slayers I talked to heavily recommended attack speed 0, and I knew that since Infernal Concussion was a 2-part skill, it might be extra awkward on attack speed 2, but I'm glad to say it's actually a lot more manageable than you'd think. And the other rotation, yeah, if you're really feeling lazy, it's CLP. This map is super simple for Demon Slayer, it really is. I wouldn't recommend it because LP1 is quite honestly simple as well, and it just gets better rate, but CLP is definitely an option if you're feeling extra lazy. The rotation is just standing here in the middle, and then using Infernal Concussion to drop down through the map. It's so simple. Make sure you're cycling your Orthrus, your big Sneck, oop, that was the wrong key. Cycle your Orthrus and your Demon Awakening on cooldown to get extra mobbing out horizontally. But this map is super simple. It doesn't get the best mob kill rate in the world. It averages between like 24 and 25k mobs, which is quite a bit lower than LP1. But if you want to watch something on the side, this definitely requires a lot less of your attention because it's literally just down jumping with Infernal Concussion and then letting your trigger attacks with Demon Awakening and Orthrus clear the mobs that are outside of Concussion's already insanely good reach. And these maps will carry you on into the mid 240s. And for 244 until 250, it's PD4, baby, we're back! I feel like I should stop recommending this map because I'm sort of running into troubles on like weekends finding a map here. So many people have started picking it up as a training area, but god dang it, it's too dang good! I gotta keep recommending it. This is another area where your Demon Awakening is actually going to play a pretty heavy part in your mobbing, because, once again, your combo can triple flat, and oh boy, it feels so good. The only mobs you're not going to be hitting with your Demon Lash combo are just the mobs that are up there on that top left and top right, but if you have Boundless Rage active, you can just jump and use Demon Cry to clear those. And since it's only on a 7-second cooldown while Boundless Rage is up, you're not really going to be losing that many mobs to the very top of the map. It's actually super duper efficient, and god dang is it easy. This map is going to be pushing like 27 to 28,000 mobs per hour, and it's really good. Whenever you need to loot, just drop down, put your big Sneck boy on the ground, he'll clear pretty much the entire map. You just dash side to side to loot things, set your summons if they're off cooldown on one side or the other, doesn't really matter too much, and by the time you're done looting the map, your big Sneck will expire, and you'll just get down here, you'll use your next skill that comes off, this time it's Orthrus, and then for Orthrus, you just down jump and jump, kind of like the CLP rotation, but a little less complex. You only have to do one down jump here since there's the gap there in the platform above the middle, so you can just jump in between the platforms and make sure that your Orthrus demons, Gary and Nemiya, are cleaving the mobs at the very tippity top, and then your Infernal Concussion is clearing pretty much everything else on the map. And this map really blew every other option in Celis out of the water. It wasn't even close, dude. PD1 was the map that came closest for kills per hour comparatively. It was pushing about 25.5k. SSS1 was like 23k, and then SSS4 was barely over 22. But holy moly. Demon Slayer really doesn't slow down as a mobber. Infernal Concussion, despite its awkwardness out the gate, is a fantastic mobbing skill. It's got a massive reach, and it does quite a bit of damage, especially for the second part of the attack. It is awkward that it is a two-part attack, but it's not too bad, especially because of Blue Blood, you're doubling your lines. It can do enough damage with reasonable amounts of funding that the first hit will kill mobs, but even if it isn't killing the mobs with the very first hit, it's still not a bad mobbing skill. It's quite good comparatively to a lot of skills. It does quite a bit of damage, but oh man, Demon Slayer was a class. Compared to Demon Avenger, it's kind of unfair how good Demon Slayer is. Like, sure, it is the canonical demon. This is the real quote-unquote demon class as far as lore is concerned. But goddamn, they're doing Demon Avenger dirty with how good this class is. Oh, jeez. Where do I even begin? For bossing, like I said at the beginning, this class is probably one of the most versatile classes for bossing alongside Dual Blade. Dude, it's got a built-in bind, it's got lifesteal, it's got iframes out the wazoo, it's got a glide, it's got a flash jump, it's got rush, it's got it all, dude. Not to mention it has low cooldown burst abilities. Demon Slayer is really packing some heat. If its damage numbers were a little bit higher, this class would probably be on the chopping block for nerfs ASAP. Like, Demon Slayer mains are like living the life being the middle of the DPS charts, because if they were any higher, holy moly, there's no way this class would get away with all of its good mechanics and good skills. It's really, really good, and it's only gonna get better. Because once Destiny rolls around, you don't even have to worry about Blue Blood anymore, dude. This is becoming a toggle ability. We're gonna be living the life. For the flash jump, it's not great. It's not even a real flash jump. It's a jag jump. And honestly, I'm glad they called it something different, because this might be the worst flash jump in the game. It's pretty pathetic. Like, while you're training, you don't really notice it because Infernal Concussion's gigantic hitbox makes up for it a lot of the times, but when you're doing stuff where your flash jump range is sort of important, like Spirit Savior, you start to notice it. It's bad. But it's bad because of all of their other mobility options. For mobbing, your glide really isn't ever useful, so I would heavily recommend just locking it so that you don't have to be double tapping your arrow key constantly to move. But if you want to leave it unlocked and actually just get used to double tapping your glide, that will really help for bossing, because your glide skill is actually sort of overpowered when it comes to bossing. The amount of mobility it offers, especially if you've played Ho Young and you've used the Nimbus Cloud, to a lesser extent, glide is like a Nimbus Cloud. It's insane how much little mobility you can get out of the glide just dodging abilities. Not to mention, like I said earlier, you can up jump and then glide out of the up jump to get yourself above certain attacks. It's super, super handy. But for mobbing, you can't really use it because you can't glide and attack like you're imitating Laura in the Lazy River training rotations. It doesn't really work that way. It's purely a mobility skill. So, fantastic for bossing, not great for mobbing. What else we got? Boundless Rage is super, super good, but it's so awkward because its cooldown doesn't really line up with anything. Like, if they nerfed its uptime just a tad to get it down to 180-second cooldown, that'd be great, so that it actually lines up with the rest of your decent skill cooldowns. How it is right now, you just kind of have to remember to watch the skill's cooldown, because it's always going to be desynced from the rest of your buffs just by its very nature of being. But regardless of it being an awkward buff to keep in rotation for mobbing, it's a fantastic skill, especially for mobbing, because dropping Demon Cry down to a 7-second cooldown is insane. Demon Cry's hitbox reach is so much better than it really should be. It doesn't have the best downward reach, but Demon Cry's upward reach is humongous. Like, it'll tag mobs that are practically off your screen. It's just that big. And it gives you bonus drop rate, dude. Who doesn't want bonus drop rate? EXP and drop rate. It's so good. You want to be using Demon Cry on cooldown while you're mobbing. It's a fantastic skill. Even if it's only tagging a handful of mobs, Just getting that bonus drop rate chance, better chance for nodes, better chance for droplets. It's great. Oh, that's such a good skill. Gone are the days of this being the primary mobbing skill with no cooldown, though. You might have noticed I didn't recommend it at any of the rotations. Chaos Lock farming still works. Think of it like an old school Spanish farming for Kanas. It does still work, but it's horrendously bad. Like, the EXP rates are straight up doo-doo. So I'd really never recommend doing it. What else was there? There was a buff. Oh yeah, Vengeance. You got this little buff here called Vengeance in your second job skill. This is probably not even a buff skill, it's more of a debuff. Like, for bossing, it's very minimal effectiveness. It's just 400% damage reflect. That's not a lot. For mobbing, this skill is actively detrimental. Not because of the damage it puts out, but because of the paralyzed chance. If a mob has a ranged attack and they hit you while this is active, they can get stunned for 5 seconds. Now that might not seem bad on the surface, but once you think about it, if the mob is just barely outside of your reach for Infernal Concussion, or for your Demon Awakening, what have you, and they hit you with an attack skill, they're going to stay outside your reach because they're not going to be able to move because they're paralyzed. This is pretty much one of the few skills in the game where I'd really never recommend using it. It's so awkward. This is just like, it's one of those old legacy skills that'll probably get removed once the resistance classes get their updates similar to the Cygnus and the Explorer update. But as it is right now, Vengeance is pretty much worthless. But that's really one of the few downsides for Demon Slayer. This class doesn't really have downsides. It's kind of the wonderful thing here. Despite how old Demon Slayer is, it's actually aged pretty wonderfully. My only real problems with it are that you can't turn or move in between your Demon Lash combos, because if you do either of those, it just resets you back to the start of your combo. Similar to like how Trinity restarts every time you hit a new mob with it. It's sort of awkward. I wish it worked more like a Ron, where it would just remember what part of the chain you are on, so you can move through the map, dodge left and right, what have you, and know that you're going to have that big chomp coming up for the 5th hit because it does so much more damage. It makes it awkward, especially if you need to move around a lot for bossing to be safe. You're losing out on a lot of damage, not being able to ensure that you're always going to get that 5th strike, because that 5th strike does quite a bit of damage, dude. It's 800%. A full 200% above the 1st and 2nd hit. And if you're not able to get that out every chain, you're missing out on quite a bit of damage. Like, they could just even the damage across the board, so it's like 700% for every hit, but then make it actually chain like a Ron can chain through their Beyonder combos, and that'd be great. It'd feel great, it'd be much more useful for mobbing, because as it is right now, unless you have a rotation where you can just use your full combo in one direction or the other, you don't really use Demon Lash for mobbing. You really only use it in those very few situations, because since you can't move and keep your combo going, it's not very useful. But, I mean, these are just minor nitpicks. Just like Infernal Concussion being a 2-part skill. It's awkward, but you get used to it. It's still a fantastic skill regardless, and more than likely, when the Resistance update comes, this class is just gonna get better. I mean, there's really not much bad to say about Demon Slayer. This class is fantastic. Aesthetically, it's perfect. Like, well, high praise, I know. It rivals Mechanic as like the most realized theme for its visuals. It's a masterclass in theme. Every single skill for Demon Slayer adds to its theme. It's so goddamn good. They all look wonderful. They look good together. Like, just some of the animations alone have a lot of visual noise, so you think it would get really, really messy, but when you have everything out, there's enough of a distinction between the abilities you can see what's going on. The problem is never the skills themselves, it's the damage lines more often than not. You don't have a Laura situation where you just have so much clutter you can't see what's going on. You would just have a lot going on, but you can always see everything. I love what they've done for this class visually. It's great. Oh boy. Well, that's been Demon Slayer. I've been gushing too much. I think it's time for us to be a Lost Ark gamer, at least for a little bit. You know, we've been playing a lot of these mushroom game classes. Played a Mercedes, Demon Slayer. I think it's time to play some Lost Arc. But this has been Demon Slayer. If you have any questions about Demon Slayer, about playing MapleStory in general, or just about my journey to getting all these classes to 250, feel free to ask down below. I make it a point in all these videos to answer any and all questions you guys might have, because, oh man, I love talking about this game. And as always, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.